The day I decided to leave Jacob Lizzie was my birthday. I wore the bellflower dress he had bought for me, and carried a cake to his house, enthusiastically preparing a table full of dishes. I waited from 6 in the evening until deep into the night, reheating the food over and over again as it grew cold. Finally, at midnight, one of his subordinates knocked on the door. He was drunk, utterly unconscious. His personal assistant brought him inside, and then left. Concerned he might not be comfortable on the sofa, I moved him to the bedroom. But as I entered the bedroom, I lost my balance and bumped my head against the doorframe. For a moment, everything went black, and I heard a ringing in my ears. I couldn't worry about the injury on my head, I only cared about his safety. Jacob Lizzie. I coaxed and pleaded, "Are you hungry? Let's get up and eat something." He grasped my hand and mumbled like a child, "Hilary Dewey, don't go." Warm blood trickled down from my forehead, dripping onto the bellflower dress Jacob Lizzie had bought for me. I stared at my pale face in the mirror, feeling disoriented. He held my hand, his eyes filled with sincerity. Despite his usual arrogance, he repeatedly and humbly expressed his longing and affection. The irony was, I wasn't Hilary Dewey. I left the city where Jacob Lizzie was and moved to another city. There, I found a job as an editor and met Gustav Pansy. He was a writer I was responsible for, refined and occasionally a bit childish, fond of cooking, and very accommodating of me. We became a couple and chose not to inquire about each other's past relationships. We were more like old friends than lovers. On the day I ran into Jacob Lizzie again, Gustav Pansy and I had plans to go to the mall to watch a movie. The movie was about to start, and I was still rushing up the escalator. "Sorry, I'm running late from the meeting. I'll be there in 2 minutes." After sending a message to Gustav Pansy, I received his reply almost immediately, "No hurry. By the way, it would be great if you were as patient with manuscript deadlines as you are with me." Smiling at my phone, I was about to reply that it was impossible, when someone called my name from beside me. "Nicola Francis." I looked over and saw a group of people on the adjacent escalator heading down a level. Jacob Lizzie, dressed in a suit, was the most prominent among them. He stared at me, his lips moving. We were like two parallel lines moving further apart. I heard him say, "Wait for me," but I didn't turn around. Jacob Lizzie changed direction and followed me all the way. In front of the cinema, he grabbed my arm, breathless. "Nicola Francis, I told you to wait. Did you hear me?" I looked at him calmly. "Is there something you need?" I had always kept a low profile in front of him, but now I refused to show any sign of fear. "Do you think I'm here for no reason?" His eyes were intense, and his tone carried his usual domineering attitude. Before I could think of a response, I heard footsteps behind me. Nicola Francis. Gustav Pansy, easily identifiable in his colorful cartoon hoodie, came over with a large bucket of popcorn. "The movie has started. Why aren't you going in?" Gustav Pansy took my hand. I started to follow him, but Jacob Lizzie pulled on my other hand. Jacob Lizzie sneered, his eyes cold. "Nicola Francis, I won't let you go." Gustav Pansy's usually gentle expression darkened with displeasure. Though he never made me uncomfortable, he was clearly very dissatisfied with Jacob Lizzie's behavior. "Nicola Francis, I'll say it again, you're not going. Who do you think you are?" I tightened my grip on Gustav Pansy's hand. "Jacob Lizzie, I'm going to the movies with my boyfriend. If you want to wait, then wait. If not, please feel free to leave." I knew Jacob Lizzie was self-centered, but I didn't realize how crazed he could become. Gustav Pansy and I were already late. The movie had started and was reaching a small climax. Amidst the loud background music, Jacob Lizzie strode into the theater. Nicola Francis. Jacob Lizzie was tall and blocked the view of the people in the back rows, his voice annoying those in the front rows, who were trying to watch the film. "Jacob Lizzie, stop causing a scene." With irritated and disgusted looks from those around us, I felt increasingly uncomfortable and snapped, "What do you want? Come outside. I need to talk to you. I told you to wait. I don't have that much time." Jacob Lizzie's cold demeanor was like an iceberg as he reached out to pull me up. Unable to avoid him, I was about to be dragged, but Gustav Pansy, usually gentle, stood up abruptly, placing himself between Jacob Lizzie and me, his hand raised to block him. "Jacob Lizzie, please stop bothering my girlfriend." "Hey, You in the front, sit down. We can't see from the back. Who are these people? Don't they have any manners? With complaints rising around us, Gustav Pansy and I, both sensitive to such situations, decided to leave the cinema to avoid further disturbance. Jacob Lizzie dragged me into a cafe, and shot a glance at Gustav Pansy, who was still following us. I don't intend to buy coffee for irrelevant people. Gustav Pansy seemed to ignore him, crouching to check on me, and seeing that I was okay, lowered his eyes slightly. I was about to apologize, but he seemed to already know what I wanted to say. I'll be outside. If you need anything, call me. Jacob Lizzie, holding a white porcelain cup, looked composed, showing no sign of the chaos he had caused. Why did you leave without saying goodbye? He set down his cup, seeming to begin a one-sided interrogation. And changed your phone number. Nicola Francis, did you really think I'd try to find you? I didn't think that. I had first met Jacob Lizzie when I applied for an editing position at his cultural company right after graduating from college. Because my alma mater was ordinary, and I had no work experience, my job search had repeatedly failed. So, when the HR offered me another position, I accepted without hesitation. I became Jacob Lizzie's personal assistant. After completing the tasks he assigned, I, like other editors in the company, would muster the courage to show him some of my own written proposals, but he would always dismiss them with a light laugh, saying they weren't what I was supposed to be doing. One night, he was drunk, and I was not exactly sober either. When I woke up, everything was wrong. Jacob Lizzie was the general manager of a large cultural company, and I was just a recent graduate, out of my league with him. I followed his advice, quit my job, abandoned my passion for writing, and devoted myself to taking care of him, becoming a pleasing canary. I always thought that if I did well enough and catered to his preferences wholeheartedly, he would eventually see and appreciate my worth. It wasn't until the night of my birthday that I realized he paid attention to me, solely because my name was similar to his ex-girlfriend's. Even though I had no relation to her, to Jacob Lizzie, I had always been her substitute. When I decided to withdraw from this relationship, I did change my phone number. But it wasn't because I cared whether he would try to find me. I was simply too hurt to give myself a chance to turn back. Are you doing well? I asked. He paused slightly, of course. Perhaps the prolonged humility from being with Jacob Lizzie had smoothed my edges, and I could never express sharp words, or vent my feelings in front of him. That's good. Let's not dwell on the past, look forward. Was I not good to you? Jacob Lizzie leaned in, his powerful presence making me tense up, as he lightly lifted the name tag hanging from my chest. Was the money I gave you not enough? Did you need to come all this way to work? It's not about the money. I covered the name tag, avoiding his gaze. The money Jacob Lizzie had given me was kept in a card, and I had returned it all when I left. Then what's the reason? He lightly tipped up my chin, looking out the window. Because of this man outside the glass window, perhaps to avoid embarrassment and not wanting to leave, Gustav Pansy lounged on the railing, looking bored. His pure white hoodie looked simple and casual, matching my cartoon hoodie. Before meeting Jacob Lizzie, I used to like wearing hoodies and jeans, but later I changed to dresses, to please him. Now that everything was finally over, there was no reason to go back. It has nothing to do with him. I averted my gaze and pulled away from Jacob Lizzie's hand. It's just a simple breakup with no deeper reason. His long-standing pride and confidence made Jacob Lizzie lose his temper, his tone sharp. Nicola Francis, even if we were to break up, it shouldn't be you who initiated it. I didn't respond as the waiter brought over a dessert, a yellow fruit jam encased a soft and dense cake. Smelling it, I could only detect a sweet fruit aroma, unable to distinguish whether it was mango or something else. I stared at it. Jacob Lizzie loosened the cufflinks on his white shirt, showing clear impatience in his words and actions. If you want to eat it, just eat it. Do I have to teach you how to eat now? I preferred eating to talking with Jacob Lizzie, hoping to silence his endless chatter. I took a bite, and as soon as the jam touched my tongue, I realized something was wrong. By the time I wanted to spit it out, the jam had already slid down my throat. Cough, cough, I coughed violently, my skin turning red all over in no time. You. Jacob Lizzie's eyes showed shock. Gustav Pansy, hearing the commotion from outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, rushed in. Seeing the partially eaten cake, his brows furrowed deeply. What did you just give her? Cake. Mango and orange mix. Doesn't she know she can't eat oranges? Jacob Lizzie looked confused and slightly taken aback. What are you talking about? Gustav Pansy, in a fit of rage, grabbed the leftover cake and threw it at Jacob Lizzie. You eat it yourself. When I was with Jacob Lizzie, he seemed to be the center of my world, and I always revolved around him with humility. If he wanted a particular snack, I would travel across the city to get it. If he wanted soup I made, I would get up in the middle of the night to buy ingredients and cook. Jacob Lizzie was my first love, and I never cared about gains or losses. But my complete devotion ultimately brought me deceit and arrogance from him. Jacob Lizzie taught me that in emotional relationships, excessive sacrifice and expecting equal reciprocation often lead to disappointment. So with Gustav Pansy, I am always cautious and hold no expectations. But he seems different from Jacob Lizzie. Cold medicine dripped through a transparent IV tube into my greenish veins, as Gustav Pansy ran back from the tea room, placing a perfectly heated towel in my hand to ease the discomfort of the infusion. Gustav Pansy, who had been running back and forth to the hot water room all night, now had dark circles under his eyes. I pulled him down to sit, but he instead let me lean on his shoulder, gently patting my back as if soothing a child to sleep. I thought you'd be angry, I said. After all, having an ex-interrupted date isn't something many partners would tolerate. But he remained overly calm, never expressing any frustration with Jacob Lizzie. Nicola Francis, that's just a part of your past. There's no reason for me to be angry. Yes, it is a part of my past, even if it's the part one least want to remember. Seeing him again, does it still upset you? Gustav Pansy gently touched my disheveled hair, his eyes filled with compassion. Seeing Jacob Lizzie again brought no bitterness, no embarrassment, and no desire for explanations about the past. Upset? That's long gone. I smiled lightly. I just think it's a pity about the movie. Hearing this, Gustav Pansy seemed relieved, his shoulders relaxing slightly. It's no big deal. We can watch it again tomorrow. He then started humming a melodious tune with satisfaction. I thought to myself, it's just a movie. We can make up for it tomorrow. But suddenly, I became alert and pulled away from him. Wait a minute, what's wrong? He blinked at me. When we agreed to watch the movie, we had set some rules. I would write the article properly after the movie. Now it was almost midnight, and Gustav Pansy was still with me, at the hospital for an infusion. We've been at this for so long, and you haven't written a single word. I looked frantic. This was bad. Tomorrow was the editing department's review day, and I was going to miss it. Gustav Pansy pulled me back into his arms. My editor, just relax and don't worry. I've already written it. Gustav Pansy leaned against me. How could I let my editor get scolded? But you said you wouldn't write if we didn't go to the movie. I stared at him suspiciously, with an innocent face. Gustav Pansy now smirked with a hint of cunning. I'm not using the script to blackmail you. Will you, the workaholic, come out to see a movie with me? Damn. He knows me so well. The next day, Gustav Pansy drove me to the office. I've packed the medicine for you. Remember to take it, he said softly, kissing my forehead, while I smiled up at him. My encounter with Jacob Lizzie didn't affect my relationship with Gustav Pansy. I reminded him as usual, remember to eat, and remember to write the script. I know. Gustav Pansy closed the bag and handed it to me. You'll be late for work if you don't hurry. Editor. I hummed a tune as I arrived at my desk. Before I even sat down, the director entered with a beaming smile. Nicola Francis, don't leave tonight. We're having a departmental dinner. I nudged the colleague next to me. Xiao Liu, what's going on? Why is the old tightwad suddenly willing to spend money? Xiao Liu whispered. The old tightwad mentioned the dinner to everyone this morning. It seems like our company has just landed a big project that will earn us a lot. What big project could a small company, with dozens of employees possibly get? I said nothing, and Xiao Liu went off to attend to other things. But when it was time for the manuscript review meeting, I found myself in the conference room face to face with the last person I wanted to see. Jacob Lizzie was sitting in the most luxurious office chair in our company, while the usually scruffy vice presidents and directors were all dressed in suits, surrounding him in a black mass. Damn, Who is that guy? Such a grand presence. I twisted the pen in my hand, noticing his gaze lingering on me. The vice president announced that the editorial department should focus on reviewing existing manuscripts to select potential works for film adaptation. Jacob Lizzie's cultural company would be handling the upstream promotion and distribution. It's an honor for our company that Jacob Lizzie selected us, the vice president said obsequiously. Let me introduce you to Director Wong from our editorial department, who is mainly responsible for manuscript review and this project's overall coordination. The old tightwad, who usually bossed us around, was now bending over backward in front of Jacob Lizzie. Jacob Lizzie, however, ignored him as if he were invisible. I'm not concerned with anything else. She'll handle the coordination, Jacob Lizzie said, swiveling slightly in his chair and pointing at me. A murmur of surprise filled the room. In front of everyone, Jacob Lizzie explicitly ordered that I be the project coordinator, responsible for reporting on the progress. Nicola Francis has only been with the company for a year and lacks sufficient experience. Oh, so you're saying you're not planning to collaborate? We have more suitable people for this role. Jacob Lizzie didn't listen and stormed out, with several vice presidents in pursuit. The conference room erupted into chaos. People looked at each other in confusion. Xiao Liu pulled me aside. What's going on? Nicola Francis, do you know that guy? I used to know him, I said, standing up and gathering the materials on my desk. Facing my colleagues' inquisitive stares, I calmly added, not anymore. By noon, the leaders returned. The incident had caught the attention of the company's owner, who, usually seen once a month, now approached my desk with a sycophantic expression. Nicola Francis, right? Yes, he went on, hoping I'd take on the project with Jacob Lizzie's company. You know how competitive the cultural industry is. This opportunity is rare. The company trusts you and is giving you such a major project. He was painting a rosy picture while piling on the pressure. When I first joined the company, I spent 6 months doing odd jobs. Just as I was getting into a proper role, I was now faced with this unexpected situation. With the big shots crowding around my desk, I found it somewhat laughable. The boss was convinced I would accept the offer. Nicola Francis, we all know you have ambition. If this deal with Jacob Lizzie goes through, the company will surely reward you. You must do well and not disappoint. My phone screen flashed, and my attention was drawn to a message from Gustav Pansy. Editor, remember to take your medicine Tilda. I heard footsteps and looked up to see Jacob Lizzie had returned, standing not far away. He observed me with shifting eyes. I won't be the coordinator. At that distance, I was sure he heard me. His face darkened immediately. What did you say? The boss seemed to question his own hearing. I said, I won't do it. It wasn't fair to Gustav Pansy to continue dealing with Jacob Lizzie. Fire me. I packed up some valuables and decided to leave work early. Just before the elevator doors closed, Jacob Lizzie stepped in with long strides. He stood straight next to me, hands in his suit pockets, looking slightly displeased as he asked, do you know why I came to this company? I stared ahead blankly. I don't want to know. Yes, I forgot you can't eat oranges. Jacob Lizzie, despite his pride, struggled with his irritation. He turned me to face him. But aren't I making amends? I lowered my gaze, remaining silent. Can't I pick any other company, and it would be better than yours? I came here because I want to take you back, Jacob Lizzie said earnestly. Nicola Francis, I won't pursue why you left me. As long as you turn back now, I'll let everything go. I was too exhausted to fight him off, and sighed heavily. He mistook my silence for hesitation and intensified his appeal. If you want recognition, I can make you my girlfriend publicly. If you want a job, you can work as an editor in my company, or even in management. We've broken up, I said firmly, repeating what I had said yesterday. Jacob Lizzie, we've broken up. Jacob Lizzie cursed under his breath, and shoved me into the corner of the elevator. The box I was holding was crushed, and its contents scattered on the floor. He scoffed with reddened eyes. Nicola Francis, you've been gone for a whole year. After a year, it's only natural to forget some things. I pushed him a few times but couldn't get away. I felt absurd and looked up at him. I've already been accommodating. Do you really have to use our breakup as some childish tantrum? He grabbed my hands tighter and tighter. Due to our size difference, I couldn't struggle free, and my agitation grew. Jacob Lizzie, I have a boyfriend now. That pretty boy, ignoring my attempts to hit him. He easily held my hands above my head. What can he give you? Nicola Francis. My patience has limits. I'll say this one last time, come back with me, and I'll pretend nothing happened. I don't love you anymore. I shouted the words, almost roaring, like an angry lion feeling threatened, my voice breaking and harsh. I rarely lose my temper. I know it, and Jacob Lizzie knows it too, which is why he always bullies me, pushing me to retreat step by step. After all, I used to find all kinds of reasons to understand him. I don't love you anymore, Jacob Lizzie. Upon hearing this, his face went pale, and his grip on my hands loosened involuntarily. Silence, an unusual silence. The silence that used to oppress me constantly in the past was now led by me, seeming to have no effect on me anymore. I almost calmly picked up the scattered items from the floor. Jacob Lizzie, though visibly slumped, remained standing straight, as if the argument had never happened, until I picked up the broken glass cup. I had been using that cup since college. It had accompanied me for many years. Out of habit, I used it almost everywhere, and I used to praise its durability to Jacob Lizzie. He once complained that after so many years, it was time to replace it, as if money were no object. Now it was completely shattered, beyond repair, just like my relationship with Jacob Lizzie, which I once believed would remain strong as long as I tried hard. Once it cracked, it was impossible to ignore and difficult to mend. I glanced back at him. The awkwardness and distress had been tided away, revealing only his usual composure. The elevator doors opened. My colleagues, seeing me sitting on the floor and the broken cup, said, "Isn't that your favorite cup?" "Yes," I said, looking away, picking up the items, and smiling weakly. "Forget it, I don't need it anymore." I threw it into the elevator trash can. Once broken, it should be discarded and forgotten, becoming part of the past. When Gustav Pansy opened the door for me, he wore gold-rimmed glasses on his high nose, and a pair of Mickey Mouse pajamas, looking refined yet naturally cute. As soon as he opened the door, he saw me drenched from the rain, holding a box. It was quite unlucky. It started raining just a few steps out of the office. I didn't want to go back and run into Jacob Lizzie again, so I stubbornly didn't go back for an umbrella. The rain kept getting heavier. I had no choice but to run to Gustav Pansy's place, which was closer to the office. After I took a shower, Gustav Pansy made me sit on the sofa, and gently dried my wet hair with a towel. So, why did my editor run out and turn into a little drowned chicken? Drowned duck, I said, looking at my Donald Duck pajamas, not forgetting to make a little joke despite my troubles. I left out the part about Jacob Lizzie's appearance, and said it was because I was assigned unwanted work and was unhappy. "So, you quit?" I nodded, frowning deeply. "That's right, I've said it, but they haven't agreed yet. I'm sorry I didn't discuss it with you beforehand." A low, almost amused voice came from behind me. I turned around in confusion. Gustav Pansy, awkwardly holding his hand over his mouth, with innocent eyes, said, "Ahem, I'm not gloating about not having to rush scripts." Despite my obvious disappointment, Gustav Pansy remained overly optimistic and hugged me. "A break is good. You've been staying up late like a panda, but jobs are hard to find now." I thought about my savings, not enough for a down payment. Without work, I couldn't get a loan, making me more anxious. He stroked my hair. "It's okay, I'll support you." "Enough of that," I said, hugging his narrow waist and leaning softly on his shoulder. "With the meager salary from our company, you'd struggle to support yourself. Then, how about you make me rich when you get a new job?" "I'll make you rich." I looked up to see his eyes sparkling with excitement. His excessive tenderness felt like a warm light clearing away my gloom. "Yes," Gustav Pansy said, lifting my chin and rubbing his nose against mine. "You said you'd make me rich and help me reach the pinnacle of life." I laughed and gave him a playful punch. "I've never seen anyone make living off someone else sound so fresh and refined. You'll see more of it in the future." We were cozy on the sofa, not noticing the pot on the stove had started to burn. When the smell of burning reached us, Gustav Pansy yelled that it was ruined, and rushed to the kitchen in a flurry. "Where's the ginger tea?" I teased him from the dining area, watching him emerge with a blackened pot, looking pitiful. "How about some wine instead?" Gustav Pansy's small apartment had a wine cabinet filled with his treasures. According to him, he usually didn't even let others look at them, let alone drink them. He had a strange habit of peeling off all the labels, so he often had to look at the bottle for a long time to figure out what kind of wine it was. Drinking wine was like opening a mystery box for him. "What kind of wine is this?" I asked as he handed me a glass. He smiled. "I don't know." Gustav Panzis wine was smooth and aromatic. I wanted to ask if he didn't remember what kind of wine it was. Then surely he knew the brand. I thought I'd get some bottles myself when I got home. But he hesitated, saying he had forgotten since he bought it a long time ago. I didn't press further, drew the curtains, and snuggled up with him on the sofa to watch A Chinese Odyssey. By the end, laughing and crying, I looked back for some tissues and saw him, a grown man, secretly wiping away tears. "It's normal for writers to be sentimental," he said proudly, wiping his own tears. But he held me tighter as I cried. After the movie ended, Gustav Pansy turned off the screen and carried me to the bedroom. When Supreme Treasure fell for White Bone Spirit, she loved Sun Wukong. When she finally gave up on Sun Wukong and turned to Supreme Treasure's heart was with Zixia Fairy. Isn't it just like love? Once you have expectations, you keep missing out. "It won't," Gustav Pansy said gently after a pause, his tone soft. "As long as someone is holding on, they won't miss out." I didn't understand. My mind was too foggy to process his words. My eyelids were heavy and kept drooping. "Nicola Francis." He kissed my forehead gently, smoothing out the frown between my brows, his eyes twinkling like scattered stars. "I'll always be watching over you." My heart skipped a beat. "You're so perceptive and smart. How could you not sense that I've always held back emotionally? But you still said it." "I don't want to be stuck in the past." "But I tugged at his sleeve lightly, unsure if it was the alcohol or the weight of unspoken words. "Gustav Pansy, I don't want to miss out on you. The aftermath of Jacob Lizzie's presence has left me with pain I still don't have the courage to face. I remain cautious in my emotions, anxious and uncertain. I'm afraid to take the next step, but I greedily hope you can wait for me. I selfishly wish you could wait until I'm healed, until I've mended my wounds." "Nicola Francis, I understand." Gustav Panzis' words were like a strong stimulant to my heart. "I'll wait for you to make a place in your heart that's completely mine before I move in." "You're so kind." "You're going to spoil me. If I were to fall as deeply in love as I did before, if I were to uncontrollably give you my true heart again, and if all of this were just another lie, I can't bear a second lie." "Then spoil me," Gustav Pansy said, his smile illuminated by a warm golden glow, making him look almost too perfect. "I'll take full responsibility for spoiling you." I felt all the tangled knots in my heart being unwound, layer by layer, with his smile. In the end, what remained in my heart were only warm emotions. A part of my heart caved in for him, completely softening. When I met Gustav Pansy, I had just become a permanent staff member. I was still a small, inconspicuous editor in the department, handling various minor tasks for other editors. To be specific, handling rejected manuscripts was part of my job. Typically, new submissions are reviewed by 3 editors. If none of them accept it, the manuscript is kept in the rejection file, and the submitter is notified after half a month. To avoid giving ineffective feedback when authors inquired about rejections, I read every single rejected manuscript. Gustav Panzis' first manuscript submitted to our company was called *Fireflies of Summer*, and it was his first rejected manuscript. Unlike the other rejections, *Fireflies of Summer* was an incredibly stunning work. At that time, I didn't know Gustav Pansy and felt that such a great piece shouldn't be missed. I took the manuscript to all 3 reviewers again, but their responses were surprisingly unanimous. It was not accepted. "Nicola Francis, you're a bit late. Healing fairy tale themes won't sell to our audience," one of the reviewers explained patiently. "What's popular now are urban novels, either with exciting points or with tear-jerking elements. This book has neither." Fireflies of Summer tells a fresh fairy tale love story without any melodramatic plot twists. Gustav Pansy set the love story among small animals, with simple, pure, and elegant language. I once used it as a heartwarming bedtime read. "I'm sorry, your manuscript was not accepted." I typed those words, imagining the disappointed expression on the other side of the screen. My fingers trembled slightly, but I really like *Fireflies of Summer*. It's the most healing story I've read this year. I added, if possible, please send us more submissions. About 6 months later, my job was settled, and I became Gustav Panz's editor. Editing and author communication mostly involve manuscript coordination, with little personal interaction, but perhaps because Gustav Panzi and I shared many interests, our conversations eventually felt like chatting with an old friend. One night, very late, he called me out of breath, asking where I was. At home, I said, preparing to go to bed at 11. Oh, he replied, still breathing heavily, and soon hung up. What was going on? Just as I hesitated whether to call back, my phone lit up again with his name. Hello, what's up? I answered more quickly this time. I forgot to ask. He swallowed. Where do you live? Half an hour later, he said he had arrived at our neighborhood, and asked if it was convenient for me to come downstairs, as he wanted to talk to me in person. Gustav Panzi, do you know what time it is? Even though working as an editor, I knew many writers had peculiar habits, but Gustav Panzi's habit of calling people out in the middle of the night was hard for me to accept. I have something important to tell you, and it must be today, he said, finally calming his breath. Do you remember *Fireflies of Summer*? The one you and I discussed. The one you liked. Of course, I blinked. In a love story, the clumsy bear could never see his true feelings, and kept running around the forest, running and running until exhausted. Finally, he mustered the courage to knock on the little rabbit's treehouse. When the last firefly of the summer night goes out, the night sky will be filled with countless stars. Gustav Panzi took a few steps closer to me, his t-shirt soaked with sweat. If I can't see clearly, then I'll keep running. If 20 laps aren't enough, then 30 laps. But before I'm exhausted, if I can think of the person's name, I'll make sure to meet her, even if I have just a little strength left. Yoon Tutu, Nicola Francis. In that overlapping moment, Gustav Panzi stood before me, enacting a scene from a fairy tale. I looked up at him, the new moon night clear, with no wind, no moon, and no clouds, only the endless galaxy of stars. Gustav Panzi smiled broadly. I like you, Nicola Francis, I like you. These days, while I was at home organizing manuscripts, I answered an unfamiliar call, not immediately realizing it was Jacob Lizzie. I didn't know who he borrowed a phone from since his previous number had been on my blacklist. Holding the phone, I bit my lip, silent for a long time. Can you come see me? Jacob Lizzie asked, his voice low and pleading. I'm really in so much pain. Can you stop acting? I wanted to hang up. The next moment, I heard a chaotic commotion on the other end. Young man, hey, young man. A passing aunt kept emphasizing she was just someone who borrowed the phone and needed to leave urgently, giving me an address and urging me to come quickly. It was broad daylight. Surely nothing would go wrong. I didn't want to think too much, but the aunt's incessant calls were unsettling me. When I arrived in a hurry, Jacob Lizzie was pale, sitting at the door of the luxury apartment suite. Jacob Lizzie had stomach issues from early social engagements. He never paid attention, and when it flared up, it was severe. Seeing his condition was bad and seemingly genuine, I didn't care about our past issues. Should I call 120, emergency services? But he only shook his head, pointing towards the room, asking me to take him back inside. I was wary of him but hesitated for a moment before opening the door wide. Even though it was afternoon, the thick curtains made the room dim, and it was in disarray. The coffee table was piled with empty liquor bottles, and I wondered how Jacob Lizzie had been living. He held his stomach, sweating profusely, trying to speak, but I cut him off. Open your mouth and take the medicine. Drink some water. Lie down and don't move. He followed my instructions obediently, unusually so. When I saw he was better and was about to leave, I turned back to see him struggling to rise from the sofa. Why are you moving again? I frowned. I'm afraid you'll leave. He looked at me timidly, as if the imposing Jacob Lizzie never existed. Nicola Francis, Jacob Lizzie. I cut him off, asking calmly, where's your assistant? I'll call him to take care of you. I sent him back to the company headquarters. After a few days, Jacob Lizzie had lost a lot of weight, his cheeks hollowed, looking as thin as paper. Nicola Francis, I'm so hungry. So now I'm playing the role of a caretaker. I ordered a light porridge for him, Just as Gustav Panzi's message came through, after a moment of hesitation, I finally sent Gustav Panzi my location. Gustav Panzi paused for a moment, then immediately called me. As soon as I answered, I heard him urgently say, "Put on your headphones and don't hang up. I'm on my way." I put on my headphones, swallowed nervously, and felt a surge of tension. The delivery arrived, and the delivery person was about to close the door. Desperate to avoid trouble, I quickly shouted, "No, don't close it." After placing the delivery on the coffee table, the delivery person returned to the door, keeping a distance of 5 or 6 meters from Jacob Lizzie. "Why aren't you coming in?" "Not coming in, not coming in." Jacob Lizzie ate the porridge slowly, occasionally glancing at me, as if he had done something wrong, burying his head even lower. "Nicola Francis, I'm a bit cold. Could you?" Dangerous words. I heard Gustav Panzi on the other end gasp sharply, his voice trembling. "Nicola Francis. Nicola Francis." I shouted in confusion. "Nicola Francis, what's happening?" Jacob Lizzie tilted his head, puzzled. I cleared my throat softly. "My boyfriend is coming to pick me up. Don't make trouble." Jacob Lizzie's dark eyes narrowed, casting a shadow. "Every time I had a stomachache before, you were more anxious than I was, cooking porridge and heating soup." His words were full of grievance. Gustav Panzi on the other end sighed quietly. I stood straight and rigid, like a child who had done something wrong. Memories were never something Jacob Lizzie would do, but the current hymn was shattering my perceptions. "I have something to give you." After drinking some porridge and feeling a bit better, he shockily got up from the coffee table, trying to take my hand as he passed by, but I quickly recoiled as if shocked. "I don't want it. I don't want your things." But Jacob Lizzie didn't listen to my refusal, and walked into the study. To avoid suspicion, I remained in the living room, unmoving. When he opened the study door, warm yellow light spilled through the crack. The entire suite was in disarray, but the study was meticulously clean. Jacob Lizzie dragged out things from the study one by one like a treasure. High and low stacks of gifts filled the room, with things I had wanted but couldn't afford, a violent bear figurine, vinyl records I had always wanted, and large bouquets of roses, in my favorite colors and scents. The crackling sound of the headphones was all I could hear. With no further conversation from Gustav Panzi, I coldly surveyed everything, unsure of what Jacob Lizzie was up to. "I asked your colleagues what you like and prepared gifts for you, but I never had the chance to give them to you." He picked up 2 amusement park tickets, revealing a sense of regret. "And the amusement park you always wanted to go to." But I kept saying I was busy. I remained expressionless until he finally held up a glass, the glass I had broken and discarded. Yellow tape stubbornly wrapped around it, as if determined to restore it, binding the broken pieces together. "Didn't I throw it in the trash?" I picked it up. Jacob Lizzie's voice was hoarse. "Nicola Francis, could you not throw me away?" He leaned closer, a shadow passing by him. "Jacob Lizzie." Gustav Panzi burst in, panting, his face dark with anger as he separated Jacob Lizzie from me. "If you're sick, get treatment. Stop clinging to someone else's girlfriend." "I'm not in pain anymore." Jacob Lizzie grabbed the rail of the ambulance, trying to get up, but Gustav Panzi, with a stern face, forcibly pushed him back down. "No, you're still in pain." Gustav Panzi had called 120 as soon as he arrived, unceremoniously putting Jacob Lizzie into the ambulance, arranging for hospitalization, and preparing all necessary supplies, showing remarkable care. "Jacob Lizzie, please don't bully my girlfriend." Forced to go to the hospital, Jacob Lizzie's face was unfriendly, his tone harsh toward Gustav Panzi. "Which eye of yours saw me bullying her?" At that moment, I had just finished contacting the caregiver and arrived at the door, pausing upon hearing the conversation in the hospital room. "She willingly takes care of me. What does it matter to you?" Jacob Lizzie's face showed disdain and indifference. "Nicola Francis and I have been together for 3 years, and our relationship has always been good. It's natural for her to be unable to let go of me. No matter what method, she will return to my side someday. You should just know your place." Gustav Panzi's voice was low. "Because of you, she almost lost her life." Jacob Lizzie looked stunned, his confident smile frozen on his face. "What are you talking about?" "Nicola Francis, I like you." Under the starry sky, Gustav Pansy confessed with a bright, radiant smile. I'm sorry. I lowered my eyes, unsure of what to say. Finally, I repeated the words again. I'm sorry. In Summer Fireflies, Yoon Tutu should have accepted Little Bear's heartfelt love, should have rushed back home to clumsily present the precious carrot bouquet to Little Bear, and then lived happily ever after. But unfortunately, I am not Yoon Tutu. My heart is riddled with wounds that have never healed. The pure love Gustav Pansy offers, shining like starlight, is something I can only shy away from? Then you should rest early. Gustav Pansy's eyebrows showed a hidden disappointment, yet he forced a casual smile. I closed the door and returned to the dim, empty room, where even the brilliant starry sky could not light up the gloom. The wound on my forehead had long scabbed over, leaving no visible scar, but the spot on my chest still throbbed with intermittent pain. After leaving Jacob Lizzie, I would experience angina at night or when my emotions fluctuated. I went to the hospital many times, but no physical issue could be found. Now, as it flared up, I struggled to reach for the medicine, only to drop the pills on the floor. I curled up on the ground in agony. When Gustav Pansy burst in upon hearing the noise, I looked like I had just been pulled out of the water, more drenched than he was after running several laps. The pain in my chest felt like being stabbed over and over. I bit my lip hard, tasting the strong metallic tang of blood. Jacob Lizzie, Nicola Francis, what are you saying? Wake up, don't sleep. I rejoiced, endured, struggled, and compromised time and again, willing to let go of everything, only for my self-respect to be shattered and crushed in the end. Jacob Lizzie. Jacob Lizzie. I love Nicola Francis. Perhaps recalling frightening past scenes, Gustav Pansy's usually restrained and polite tone became tinged with anger. If it were someone else, if she wavered, I would never let her be in a difficult position. But you can't. Gustav Pansy looked down with disdain. Your presence will only continue to hurt her. Jacob Lizzie's lips turned colorless. Jacob Lizzie, I won't back down. And please, take care of yourself. After saying what he needed to, Gustav Pansy walked out and met my gaze at the door. Momentarily surprised, our unspoken understanding quickly made him realize what I intended to do. I'll wait for you, in the parking lot. As he passed by, I grabbed his wrist. My palms were sweating. I looked at his eyes reflecting mine. With a strange light in my eyes, I spoke slowly. Gustav Pansy, wait for me. I usually avoid talking about the past, but now, it seems there's suddenly no reason to avoid it. Thanks to the courage Gustav Pansy gave me, I felt like I was wearing an invulnerable suit of armor. Sitting by the window, talking about Hilary Dewey, about past mistakes, felt as light as a cloud. Jacob Lizzie's initial hope gradually crumbled to despair. He said he didn't fare well after leaving me, from initial hysterical anger to later numbing himself with alcohol, trying to forget my existence. But the more I try to forget, the more vivid it becomes. Jacob Lizzie's eyes were bloodshot with tears. I'm afraid to go back to the old apartment. I'm afraid to open the door and not find you, not see a table full of dishes. I'm scared of seeing the outdated reminders you left me. Everything reminds me that you've left me. Nicola Francis, I don't want to lose you. I want a chance to regret, a chance to reset everything, a chance for the past to come back. I stood up, propping him up with some pillows to make him more comfortable. Jacob Lizzie, I loved you. Looking at the hope rekindled in his eyes, I smiled apologetically. But that's all in the past. I'm doing very well now. Really well. I tucked the blanket around him, one last time, calmly poured hot water and handed it to him. He refused to take it. Nicola Francis, are you saying goodbye to me? He looked up at me, tears welling in his eyes, feeling helpless. Yes, I nodded firmly. Gustav Pansy is waiting for me. The night was thick. Gustav Pansy parked in the most visible spot, leaning against the car door like a statue, his expression one of indescribable loneliness. Looking down at his watch, 2 full hours had passed. When I finally ran up to him, breathless, Gustav Pansy looked shocked. Why are you so sweaty? The walk from the hospital building to the parking lot takes just 10 minutes, so there was no reason to be drenched in sweat. I gasped for air, one hand on my waist for support, the other hidden behind my back. My knees gave way, and I was about to collapse. Fortunately, he caught me in his arms, holding me close. He didn't mind the sweat-soaked sticky state of my clothes. The loneliness of waiting vanished when he saw me, and his eyes were filled with tender affection. I'm just glad you're here. My face was flushed, my throat dry. The words I wanted to say were on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't catch my breath. Take your time, speak slowly. He held me close, leaning on his shoulder felt strangely reassuring. Gustav Pansy. Yes, his soft reply carried a hint of joy, but I pulled away from his embrace. He looked at me in confusion as I stepped back. When the last firefly of the summer night goes out, the night sky is lit with stars. I smiled up at him. Little Bear stood before me, giving me his love, so I should give him my best too. I took out the carrot bouquet I had run far to buy and held it out to him. Gustav Pansy, I like you too. Without a word, he stepped closer to me, until he was right in front of me. Before I could react, he bent down and kissed me, lost in the overwhelming tenderness. I remember that night's starry sky, shining brighter than ever before. Gustav Pansy, thank you for waiting for me. The story is complete. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for the latest content, with new novels updated daily.